Hey, welcome everyone to Designing Adobe XD. I'm your host, Talin Wadsworth. I'm the lead designer for Adobe XD, and today I'm so excited. I'm actually joined by one of my favorite designers here at Adobe. And after working with, not directly with each other for a while, she's finally joined the Adobe XD team and is now a senior designer working and designing Adobe XD, which makes me very happy. But yeah, my good friend Ainsley Wagoner joining me today. So, hey Ainsley, what's up?
Hey! I know, I was thinking like you might recognize me from many XD promotional videos prior to me actually being on the XD team.
That's fun. You've been around XD for a very long time and now officially designing. And today I'm so excited. We are actually here to also talk about one of our newest features, and Ainsley was the lead designer on this feature, and that is responsive resize, which just launched last week. This week,
yeah.
Just the other day.
Yeah.
If you haven't downloaded the update yet, or if you're new to XD, go check it out, and you can give us feedback in real time, which is one of the things I love about the stream.
Yeah.
Let's say hi to everyone who's joining us. Of course, some of the usual suspects there, Abton and Matthias. Eric, it's always great to see you back. I was also seeing you on Twitter the other day as well. Ahmad, how's it going? Linda, how's everybody doing? I saw Eric, you guys were talking a little BTS, little K-pop action. Are you a K-pop fan?
No, but I'm an admirer of the aesthetic.
There's actually a really great, Vox is doing a Netflix series, and it's called Explained.
Oh yeah.
And they actually did a whole episode on K-pop.
Yeah.
So that's why BTS has been in my head.
Is that a band?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the original OG K-pop bands, and they just released a new single or new album.
Oh,
Eric,
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. I'm like an amateur at K-pop, but always great to see those discussions going on. How's everybody doing? You guys, so today Ainsley's gonna give us a little look kind of behind the scenes, kind of what her process and the team's process is. They were designing this brand new feature for XD. But also if you have any questions for us, let us know in the chat. If you're on YouTube, hop on over to Behance so you can chat with us and ask us questions. So first, so Ainsley, tell us a little bit about kind of how long have you been here at Adobe? Tell me a little bit about yourself, for everybody here on the stream.
Yeah, I'm actually coming up on my 3-year anniversary.
All right,
here
congratulations.
at Adobe.
Yeah.
So I've been here for almost 3 years. The first kind of segment of that, I was on a team that was looking at assets and collaboration and how different Adobe services can kind of connect into other apps and make things easier for our users, both in products and on the web. And then as a part of that work, as a part of that kind of collaboration, product to web work, I was working on commenting.
Commenting for XD prototypes.
Yeah, and that's where we first got to work together. Even though we started hanging out.
Yeah, we knew each other from
immediately because we obviously sit next to each other, and I was using a very early version of XD, which was awesome. So I worked on how you comment on XD prototypes on the web. So when you create a link and you send it to whoever you need to see it, I worked on how those comments look and how you archive them, how you reply to them, how you pin them, how you put them on the canvas. And that was really fun.
I use those features every day. We all do. That's a big part of our process. So you were designing features for XD before you were actually even officially on XD.
Yeah, that was a cool project because it was 2 teams working together, which has to happen all the time at Adobe. It's such a big company. And then from there, I joined XD earlier this year. This is one of the first things that I worked on that we're going to be talking about, the responsive resize feature.
Tell us what is responsive resize? Again, for those of our friends joining us on the stream who maybe are new to design, new to XD, tell us about what responsive resize is. Yeah,
so responsive resize, well, it's actually kind of 2 things in one feature. It's at the first level, we're making the assumption that as a screen design tool, serving screen designers, you're going to be designing things at different sizes.
At different sizes, for different screen sizes.
For different screen sizes. Excuse me. And you're going to be taking the same component and it needs to be mobile and tablet and desktop small, desktop large, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So like the header or like the tab bar, the navigation bar for your app.
Yes.
Yep.
That's a good example. That's a great example. Is a header. And right now the way it works, or previously the way it would work, is like if you wanted to resize those things, like even if you copied and pasted them very quickly, you have to move each little element.
Because if you just scaled them into like Illustrator, they would all just kind of grow or stretch in really weird, unpredictable ways.
So you have like only bad options where it's like either you're scaling or you drag the background of the header, but then you have to like figure out how to place all your icons.
Redistribute everything.
When it's like we could build in logic, we can assume that people, if they're copying and pasting and resizing a component, that like certain things like the logo in the top left, we can just assume that we want that to stay in the left. And so, responsive resize, first of all, is a default behavior that's kind of turned on in XD, and you can turn it off or on. But when it's on, we're going to make certain assumptions about how you want your things to be to stay as you resize them.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting part of it, that you're really looking at the way that app designers, web designers, other designers who are designing for screens, like you're looking at ways they work and patterns in which they're working and building a feature that really helps them kind of optimize and just work faster.
Yeah. We want to save people that time of like those really tedious tasks that we sort of have to do over and over, but we know that we sort of know what you're going for.
Yeah, that always makes me, I love it, and I've loved this feature because it really reminds me of like one of the first things that we really said about XD is we wanted to allow designers to design at the speed of thought.
Yeah.
And so like Repeat Grid was one of our first designs, again, where we were looking at ways in which designers were working in patterns, and we kind of built a feature to help kind of optimize that flow. And this is, again, like in that same sort of trajectory, like doing that, adding another layer of like features and behaviors to help designers.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at it. I really, walk us through some examples of things that you were looking at and the way, again, the types of things that designers are creating and how they wanted, how you were thinking, like how would they want that to actually grow or scale?
Yeah, so this is a demo file, and you can see kind of to the right here, I've done other like riffs on this, but this is a file that we use of different examples of things that we would want to resize and have elements stay where they are.
Yeah.
So this is like a message inbox, and we can see that certain things are gonna stay like fixed left and right as you resize them.
So this is you sort of thing. This is probably like a big, like a wide phone size. Like this is like a phone size. But then if you wanted to sort of quickly scale this,
and actually the cool, I kind of want to show like artboard resize. So I'm going to turn this on, and like one way of doing it is just to copy the artboard and start to drag that out.
Yep.
And so this is actually a great example because the second layer of responsive resize that outside of the default behavior, like something weird is happening here. I think maybe I was playing with this file before and it wasn't, and I like overrode some constraints, but if things aren't working the way you want, and a lot of the time it'll happen if there's an element kind of in the middle, it's not clearly left or right, you can go in and tell it
like where to align to.
You can set those constraints.
So
yourself.
To kind of get everybody who maybe isn't familiar with it, so here we are in XD, and Ainsley has the design component selected, or in this case also the artboard selected. And now in the panel, if you look for it, is this new feature, responsive resize, and you can toggle it on and off. So you can see, and you can see the behaviors with it when it's on or off, and kind of test that out. And so here, Ainsley's showing where it was. Was it showing off? Or no, it's on. And she's now actually like defining the rules in which, like how people would sort of scale that. Let's maybe break it down for everybody and help them. Take the tab bar down at the bottom example. Maybe delete the one artboard and take just that little navigation bar down at the bottom, and let's look at how that would resize.
Yeah, actually, here's this is our kind of key example of this. Let's put it here.
Hey everyone, to joining us here in the chat. We just want to say, hi to everyone. Anel, thanks for joining us again. Howard, great to see you here as well as always. Mr. Howard Pinsky, everybody go check out his videos. Not now, after the stream. Then you can go check out all of Howard's videos. He's doing some great stuff with Adobe XD. Gladstone, how's it going? Good to see you guys. You guys have any questions for us, let us know. Again, we're showing off responsive resize today. Ainsley is our senior designer who's been really spearheading and leading this project from the design side. And we're showing off some of the examples of how it works and some of the things that she used to actually help her design this feature.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So this is a really good example of something that you would want to that you wouldn't want to have to go in and resize every single little
Why don't you show what it would do
icon.
when it's off? Show what happens when
Okay.
when it's toggled off, like when you scale that tab bar.
So
If you just to sort of scale it as normal, you know, like what would happen?
oh,
It's on, yeah. So
we
you can toggle it on and off.
so what is happening, I'll zoom in, is things are stretching.
Actually stretching the vectors. Again, like this is bad, right? Like this is then now all of a sudden like all of you were to keep this grouped and you were just to sort of scale it as normal in any vector design program, things just get off and they just get off pixel. And that's, of course, then things are gonna show up blurry or stretched or skewed in weird ways.
Right, and so obviously we don't want that. And then the other way, as we were saying, is like, say I know I want it to be this long and now I get to go in and just like space these
Move
out.
these all out again, yeah.
Which is fine, and there are certainly like shortcuts to do it with our distribution and
alignment
and
stuff.
doing math and like figuring out.
Oh man, I remember that from like the Illustrator days, doing so much math with the distribution.
dividing,
oh my gosh.
like.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I've got 200 pixels here, and I've got 5 icons, and they're 20 pixels wide, and yeah, wow, this is the space between them. Oh my gosh.
But I don't want to
Don't want to do that
I
all
don't
the
want
time.
to. Well, that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so when we turn responsive resize on, it just like, it doesn't stretch my icons, it distributes them really nicely. This one on the right stays fixed right, this one on the left stays fixed left. And you do see it's not totally perfect, so like I think I do want this to be a little bit more even here. But like, I don't know, that like
you're closer to that end result that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Either way, any way you look at it.
totally.
I love Howard. Who wants to deal with math, man? Yeah, that just slows me down. I'm just like, wait a second, dude. Like, yeah. Math and the PI though, everybody. Math and the PI.
Yes. Yeah.
Important.
And you can play with different ways of doing it. So maybe I don't want it to be.
Yeah,
Maybe I want to kind
you
of
don't want
keep
more
it
space. Yeah, you
centered.
want the icon sets to stay centered. Yeah, how would you now, again, like, I think you were talking about in that second part of responsive resize is really now defining the rules. Like what things stay close to each other, how do they scale, like where does the space grow, right? That's the second part. Like there's the auto behavior, like how these things should just distribute automatically without stretching. Yes, Miriam, it does work with repeat grid. And actually we maybe have some more examples to show that include repeat grid. So it does. So you've turned it on at you got the group selected and you turned it on.
Yeah,
right?
so I kind of want to try something now where this is actually not fixed left or right and just the width.
Walk us through some of those options there. So again, like if the autos, I do it all the time. Again, like Ainsley's been like working on this
live
feature
and breathe this.
for
I'm like,
a
yeah,
while.
you all know.
Yeah, it's like you got this, everybody. No, we don't.
Sorry,
we didn't
yeah,
explain
definitely
this to
slow
you.
me down. Okay, so what I just was doing is, first of all, like to really get good at using responsive resize, you have to understand a little bit of the grouping logic. So when you're editing the behavior, you're clicking into, like, this is all a group, right? And then
So responsive resize is on in the group.
yes,
Yep.
and and you can turn it on for the whole thing, of course. But then if I want to edit the way these resize, like they're in their own group.
Yeah.
And then of course, like even this is a smaller group. So
now
if I'm going to edit the way that this resizes, I'm going to select the child group, the first child group. And I think, let's see, let me just switch it back to auto and see what it applies. So I'm going to turn it to auto, and then I'm going to peek in manual and see what it is.
Okay.
So
that element now is, walk us through the UI pieces here.
you can see what the automatic constraints have been applied. So it looks like it's going to fix
So those are the fix points. It's fixing to these edges.
Yeah,
right?
to both the left and the right. So it means that like this one and this one will stay left and right.
So as it scales, those will stay pinned to the left and to the right. Yep.
And then it'll stay fixed to the top.
and
Like
bottom.
that space will stay the same.
That space will stay the same. All right.
And I may have messed it up because I kind of did my own groupings.
That's all right. That's all right.
So okay, now what's going to happen is it's not going to move at all.
So why don't you ungroup those? Those will go in and ungroup those again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So show us the auto now with it just turned on. Right. So they all distribute evenly as you scale the group.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So the space is growing in between all of them. But if I want all those icons to stay together, how do I get them to stay together?
Right. So that's what I was sort of doing quickly. I'm going to ungroup. Now I'm going to make this all a group together. Because
You want them to stay together.
I
You
want
want
them to
that
stay
relationship,
together.
that space between them to stay together.
as I scale. So now I'm going to make
And you want it to
one
be
big
centered.
group.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So now the icons are all a
now
group
let's see.
inside of the bigger group.
Oh, I have to tell it. Okay. I'm going to say just fix this width.
Fix the width. Don't attach to the sides, so it'll stay centered.
Yes.
All right, let's check it out.
And maybe let's just see
Fix the height.
just in
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
All right. So first.
Oh, you're still inside the group. Exit. Well, there you go. There you go. There it is.
Okay.
All right. So now this
Now it's
this seems like more of what I would want from an iPad. So instead of like having my icons now all spaced out, now essentially I have more space for more icons. So with Miriam's example with the repeat grid, if I had all my icons in a repeat grid, now then as I drag it out, that repeat grid could actually then grow, and I can then have more icons on my toolbar.
Yeah.
Awesome. Walk us through some other examples. So again, like part of the Ainsley's work, I think with the team has been really about like defining those auto rules. So if you just click on responsive resize, like how should this thing scale for the best result for any designer? And so you've got some really complex examples of the things that you use to actually train that auto behavior.
Yeah, I wonder what's the best to start with.
Which one? Let's look
Well,
at any
I
of them.
think I always think that this calculator is a really fun one.
Yeah.
I think that this one's really fun too.
So before doing anything here, how did you start to break this down? Were you making some assumptions on like what things should stay together? Again, like because you were working with Swapnil, who was our lead engineer on this, to build in. I don't want to sort of use machine learning because I think that's maybe a little overused term, but you were really like looking at a bunch of different really complex examples and really trying to predict like what's the right result here, and then testing that with designers, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the logic that we built in had a lot to do with breaking something into a shape that looks similar to this, with almost like 9, I'm going to say quadrants, but that implies 4.
Yeah, the 9 slice scaling, really kind of like the nine sections. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me of those old 9 slice scaling rules.
Yeah.
This is like the grown up like version of 9 slice scaling, really.
Right, and so if something's kind of falling along the left top right corner, we're gonna make some assumptions that you want to keep it there on resize.
Like the icon here, like there's that element. It's up. It's on its own. It's up near the top left of the window. More than likely, you're gonna want it to stay there. Like most UX designers would more than likely, as you scaled that window, would want it to stay there. Yeah. Or in for example, like that big dial in the center.
Right.
It's centered.
Right.
Probably want
and so we want to keep it centered. Let's look. Actually, I kind of want to show this one.
That one? That's a good one. Gladstone had a question for you. Does responsive resize need the layout grids to be defined? Do you need to define your layout grid before you do this?
No, you don't.
No.
We're gonna apply some automatic assumptions that we feel like are right 90% of the time around where things are.
Gladstone, here's a question for you. Would you want a kind of an interplay between layout, grids, and columns and everything? And would you like that to influence responsive resize? There's a question for you, Gladstone. I think Ainsley would be interested in that.
Yeah.
All right, show us the calculator. Let's see this.
Okay, so like this is a
This
lot
is a
of
really
elements.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, pause here for a second because this
Okay.
is a really great example. Zoom in a little bit on the white
sure.
part. So when you have auto turned on or manual, when you start to scale, just start to drag that right edge again. What are those? So tell them about those pink lines.
Right. So I think if you were watching my screen closely, you saw to the right, I was designing what that would look like.
That's right, you
on
were
these
in this
examples.
file. That's right.
But those pink lines are revealing the automatic constraints that we have applied for responsive resize. So this is showing you our logic right here. It's saying like these numbers are in the top.
They're fixed in the top
right,
Yep,
and we're gonna assume that you sort of want it to stay the same distance to the top and to the right.
Yeah, I love this. Is actually my favorite part of this feature. Like this is the piece to me that just like feels like XD, like being able to just like visualize those rules, right? That the system is kind of helping me with. Like when I start to scale it, I can see, oh, these lines are connecting the sort of toggle element to the top left, and so it's gonna sort of be fixed in position there.
Right.
I think that's super, super handy.
And I think the other thing, I don't know if this is interesting to people, but when I was designing what these like kind of how to reveal the constraints, one decision that we made, you'll notice that like these elements, this is a part of a larger group too. And these are resizing responsively as well, but they are they're nested further down in the group. So we made the decision not to only show the constraints for the top level because I think if you're showing every single element, like that could gets
really messy.
Pretty messy.
That's a really good point.
So that's why you're seeing only these, because that's actually like this as a group itself, and then this and this and this. Those are the first children. And then these would be the grandchildren.
So if you just resize that group, would we see the same? We'd see the same pink layout, right? As you scale it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
there they are. A
start
little
to
harder on the
see-
dark, but yeah, they're there. They're showing you now the automatic sort of rule set on that nested group.
Right.
That's really nice. It keeps it really clean. I like that.
Right. Yeah. And this was a good example for like a scenario where there's a lot of things being resized. So we wanted to sort of proof it by this example. We use this a lot.
Matthias has a great question here, and maybe talk about it, so the text part like will be hidden or resized as you go to a smaller one. Did you guys talk about like what would happen as things start to, again, like text sizes, for example? Does text size ever scale when you're responsive scaling? How did you approach that kind of like? Because we've talked about the components, we've talked about icons and distribution, and not wanting to sort of stretch your icons out. But talk about text a little bit and how text behaves inside of here.
Yeah, I think that we sort of leave the text size as is and let you make that decision, but you can override by holding down Shift. You can get your kind of standard scaling behavior, maintaining the aspect ratio.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna, so far in this feature, the first version of it, we haven't made any assumptions about how you want text to scale up as you resize things. We keep it the same size.
Matthias, that's really interesting. I think that speaks to maybe something that Gladson's talking about too, is like the interplay with layout and size, like on responsive resize. Is that something that you and the team are thinking about? Like maybe give everybody kind of a hint of kind of what you're thinking about how these constraint rules interplay with layout grid or with, say, overrides, maybe even at some point in the future. Have you been thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general with this feature, especially this first release of it, what we're hoping to do is like plain and simple save people time.
Yeah.
And allow them to move quickly.
Make some great decisions by default.
Yeah, and I think where it gets into more complex logic with the layout grid, we are thinking about that too, but I think what we want to do first is kind of nail the ability to like save people time in their workflow so they can move quickly.
Yeah, and the plan is hopefully as people, as a designer, start using the feature and we start throwing more and more use cases at it, that actually that system just gets smarter.
Right.
You know, which I think is a super exciting possibility. Miriam and Courtney had a really interesting question, and I actually think if you build it in the right way with repeat grid, that kind of scaling behavior can work. You see what she's saying? So imagine, so you have 4 objects in a row on an iPad, and if you scale it down to mobile, would you just scale down to 2? And I think if you put say like it's a grid and a repeat grid, as you scale that component down, the repeat grid will just mask out the 2 extra rows. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would need to be in a repeat grid for that particular scenario.
Actually, this is maybe a great moment. I'd love to show you guys why, like, one of the use cases that I threw at the team is actually our own use case. So if we hop over to my screen here, so I've got our sort of master UI kit, and before, like when we were like trying to design, we would have to do a lot of that manual moving around because I wanted to sort of resize, because a lot of our design is like we need to see the state of the UI at different sort of screen sizes. So here's like the default sort of view of XD UI. And of course, if I had turned the responsive resize off, I mean, I'll just show you kind of like what happens. Like that doesn't work. Like all those elements are scaling. Like that's actually not the behavior we want. Again, we want some of that space between those elements to scale. So now if I turn on responsive resize, again, this is like very complex in a different way. But now I can scale my UI now here directly inside of XD. And if you see, Miriam, I have these artboards in a repeat grid. And that repeat grid is actually masking them. So I think, yes, Miriam, I think you could actually do exactly what you're talking about if you're using a repeat grid. And I think if I scale this out larger, let me double check.
Right, and actually Howard...
See, look, it's actually dragging out. Now I can get more rows of artboards as I scale down.
Yeah, but I think, I hope we answered your question, Miriam. It won't shift. We don't have the logic right now, as Howard was saying, like it won't kind of like pop them below as it would if you were moving it around in a responsive browser.
Yes,
it doesn't work that way right now.
Yeah. Would you like it to work that way?
Yeah, would you? So you sort of need to still play with the repeat grid things that we've set up.
Yeah, and I think as you guys are using this and you're discovering new things, like I think Ainsley and the team have done a great job in setting up the foundation. And now, as you combine all these different pieces together, like what kind of results can you get? I think that's kind of one of the exciting things. I think definitely for me is I love seeing what now, as everybody starts to throw things at it and trying to figure out like what are the boundaries of it. What does this mean? How does this grow? So if you guys have any feedback, of course, you can reach out to us directly on Twitter, Ainsley Wagoner and Mr. Talin on Twitter, or through the Adobe XD channel. We always love hearing your feedback. And I actually had one more thing I wanted to do today, because I don't know, one of the other things that Ainsley and I connect over a lot is music. And Ainsley actually is a recording artist herself. And I actually really would love to just take the moment to actually, Paco, if you pull it back to my screen. Ainsley recently released her first EP on Spotify.
I did.
As Silverware.
Silverware. Band name.
And you should all go listen to her amazing songs. I really have loved this EP. I'm definitely one of those counts on your Spotify listen. And if you're in San Francisco, she's been playing some shows around town as Silverware. So you should definitely check her out. So multi-talented, amazing talented designer, talented musician. Ainsley, it's just a pleasure to have you on. And great work on responsive resize.
Thank
Everybody
you.
keep the feedback rolling in. We love hearing it. We love seeing what you're doing with XD. And yeah, thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Yeah.
And
thanks for the shout out.
Oh, yeah. I said I mean, why? It's great. So yeah, Ainsley's doing great work. And unfortunately, we will not be here next week. We're taking a little break. The Adobe Live team will actually be streaming from New York next week. NYC. I hope they have maybe some of our Adobe XD teammates on.
Yeah.
I hope so. I will be back with probably another special guest on October 5th, I believe. So we'll see you in a couple weeks. So Matthias, Anel, Miriam, Gladstone, thank you all for joining. And we will see you in a couple weeks.